Hi. It's genius. So, this is my investigating theater series. This is part 7 or 8, I think. I made a couple of videos, but I haven't made one in about 5 years. Well, maybe a year, 2 years. So this video in particular is about the Phantom of the Opera. This is going to be a character study on Erik, who is also known as the Phantom, with a K. Erik with a K. So, I've been listening to the soundtrack of Phantom, like many of you have, since I was 10, and I'm 37 now, so 27 years. I don't really listen to it much anymore. But I used to listen to it constantly. The first time I ever listened to it, I was, like I said, I was 10 years old, and it was the first Halloween that I stayed home, instead of going out trick-or-treating, and my twin sister and I were on the porch of my mom's house in Brentwood, Tennessee, and there used to be 113 steps that went up to her house, and we were trying to tempt people to come up to the 113 flights of stairs to get candy by playing really loud, scary music. And we ran out of music. This is back in the day when there was only CDs. And my mom had like a wall of like hundreds of CDs in the living room. And I was looking for some scary ones, and I found this one that had black background with white writing, and it said The Phantom of the Opera, and I was like, oh, I've heard of that. And then I turned over and I looked at number 6, and it said Music of the Night, and I was like, oh, I've heard that before. So I went upstairs and put it in our boombox, our CD player, to check it out and make sure that it was scary enough. And I turned it to number 6, and when I turned it on, my life changed. I basically had an orgasm. Not really, but I basically came into puberty when I heard Michael Crawford sing the Music of the Night for the first time. I was turned on. I was excited. I was like, wow, this is incredible. I think I found something that's really unique and amazing. And this was 27 years ago. So this was in 1998. This was 10 years after the musical had come out on Broadway. And actually, my sister and I were born on February 26, 1988. Phantom came out on Broadway January 26, 1988. So we were born a month after Phantom arrived on Broadway, even though it had been in London for 2 years. I think my dad got to see the original cast, and I don't think he even knew what he was seeing. Like many of you, I've seen Phantom like probably 10 times. I've seen it in London, I've seen it at CPAC in Nashville, and I've seen it in New York. And I've seen it I saw it in London once, and it was incredible. So I was in London twice, actually. I just went to London in October and saw it for like the 10th or 11th time. It never gets old. Nowadays, I mostly appreciate the singing. The singing is so high quality in any Phantom show that you just know that when you go buy a ticket to see Phantom, that you're going to be treated to some world-class quality singing. So, yeah, my life changed that night. And I used to dress up in a tuxedo, my grandfather's tuxedo that didn't fit me, white shirt that was very soft, and black pants, and a fedora, and a mask, a white mask, and pretend that I was Erik and lip sync to Michael Crawford. And I would also do it in bed, by myself, of course. And I used to think that I was a boy, because I would pretend that my pillow was Christine and I would kiss it, and so I thought I was like a boy. And the words transgender didn't really exist back then, so I've always kind of thought that I was a boy, even though I'm not transgender. I'm just androgynous. So that's a whole different story. So anyway, Michael Crawford originally played the Phantom as very sensual, very sexual. With a lot of sexual power, a lot of seduction. And Erik is a broken soul. He's a genius. He knows architecture, art, writing music. He knows how to play multiple instruments. He knows how to sing incredibly well. There's a book called Phantom by Susan Kay that came out when the Phantom of the Opera came out on Broadway, that says that when Erik was young, that his mother would like take him to her breast, and like feels erotically charged by his singing, by his cooing. She was like, it was very, very seductive. He also is a brilliant ventriloquist. He was in Persia for many years. He worked for the Sultan of Persia and built torture chambers made of glass, made of mirrors, because when he was a baby, when he was like 10 years old, when he was like 5 years old, he was shown a mirror for the first time, and he thought that like his face was like a monster, and it was like in the glass, so he broke it. Even though he was a genius and a child prodigy, he couldn't understand that it was his face. He thought it was like a monster. His mother never let him. There were never any mirrors in his house. In the book Phantom by Susan Kay, Erik is just naturally very seductive. Everything he does, how he talks, how he moves, he's also a magician. How he moves, how he talks, how he walks, how he does everything is just very seductive. And he's a virgin. When he meets Christine, he's like 50 years old, and Christine is 20. And he's never had sex. And in the Susan Kay book, he does make love to her for the first time, and they have a child. And the Phantom and Erik and Christine both die, and Raoul raises the child. But Erik lives underground. After many years of trying to hide from the world, he builds a home for himself under the Paris Opera House by the lake, and he lives there for decades. And then he meets Christine. He hears her singing, and he falls desperately in love with her immediately. And she loves Raoul. And in the end, he lets her go because she kisses him. She shows compassion to him like no one else had ever shown compassion to him. And he also was in a freak show when he was like 10. He ran away from home, and he was found by gypsies, and he was almost raped by his master. I think his name was Javert. And then he kills his master and runs away and goes to Italy and becomes a stonemason, becomes an architect. But with the gypsies, he is put in a cage, and he makes a deal with his master. He says, let me play for them, let me sing, and then at the end of the performance, I'll take off my mask. And he literally is like a walking corpse. He's literally like a living corpse. That's what they call him, the living corpse. His face and skull is like a skull. His eyes are sunken in. He's very bony and very, very tall and very skinny and bony. His body is very cold. He's like a living skeleton. And so how I played him when I was a kid, when I was in my room, I would, I'd play him as very sensitive. He cried easily. I would pretend that he was getting beaten, getting whipped, and that, like, I would pretend that he was in a situation where he would be getting whipped and tortured and raped for a girl that he loved. Like, that a man would rape him and say, I would do this to the girl that you love if it wasn't you. And so he says, rape me instead. And torture me and whip me and hurt me instead of this girl that I love, even though she doesn't love me back. There's a lot of unrequited love in Phantom, in the story of Phantom, but I used to play him as more sensitive, more shy, more vulnerable, more scared, because even though he just has a sexual aura about him, he's scared because he's in love with this young girl and he's never had sex before. So he kind of is a little awkward and afraid, and his hands shake, and he cries very easily. I love a guy who will cry easily, because of Erik. But I would just play him a little bit more sensitive and easy to get angry. Erik has a really horrible temper, a murderous temper. He's killed several people. He's famous for using his Punjab lasso for strangling people to death, and anybody who annoys him, he'll kill immediately. He also feels love for unloved things. Like, there's a scene in the Susan K book where Christine is in Erik's lair with him, and she sees a spider, and she says, Erik, kill it. It's so disgusting. Kill it. And Erik goes, oh, you want me to kill it, do you now? It's just a spider. It's not going to hurt you. Do you want me to kill it just because it's ugly? Do you want to kill anything that's ugly? Is that what it is? And Christine goes, no, I didn't mean it that way. And he's like, so just because it's ugly, you hate it. And he's saying that because obviously he is ugly, and he's saying this because he's ugly, and everyone has hated him just because of how he looks. And even though he's a murderous fiend, and a very manipulative person in order to get what he wants, he's pretty evil. But I excuse all that for the fact that he's totally unloved. No one has ever kissed him. No one's ever made love to him. No one has ever shown him any kind of love. He's never had any kind of physical affection. And living an entire life, I couldn't imagine living for 50 years and no one ever loving you, even your own mother. And Christine is in love with him. At one point, she thinks that he's an angel from heaven, that her dead father, has sent an angel to teach her how to sing, and she only hears his voice, and his voice is very beautiful and very sensual and very erotic. And so she falls in love with his voice, and then she sees him and she realizes that he's just a man, and then she tears off his mask and sees his face, and it's all over. But she is able to feel compassion for him, and in the book, in the Susan K book, she's able to love him eventually. She's able to see past his ugliness, and because I've felt very ugly my whole life. I felt ugly and fat my whole life, even though 5 years ago I wasn't fat and I thought I was. I've always felt ugly. People in my family have told me that I'm ugly and unattractive, and I've always felt unlovable. and misunderstood, and I was bullied a lot when I was a little girl. So I loved music. I love music so much. I honestly think that, I could live without theater, but if I had to live without music, like if I could never listen to music again, I think I'd die. I literally listen to music 24/7. And I listen to the same songs over and over and over and over and over again and analyze them. Um, I'm not a genius or a child prodigy like Erik was, but I love music and I love the arts. I love theater. I love art. I love the arts. And um, even though it's always been important to me that the person that I'm with is physically attractive, somebody who is as much of a genius as Erik was, and someone who is, but the thing is that I realized years and years and years later, after discovering Phantom of the Opera for the first time, that Erik is evil. He's very evil. He's very manipulative. He manipulates Christine into loving him because he doesn't know any other way. So he's very evil, and he's not a good he's not necessarily a bad person. He's incredibly misunderstood and unloved and uncared for, and that will definitely make you evil. So I think the fact that he is evil and he's killed people, he's killed many people, even though he is evil, I understand, because he's so mistreated and misunderstood, and he's been tortured and raped and nearly killed and misunderstood his entire life, and that will definitely make you into an evil person. When evil and hatred is done to you, you will become an evil and hateful person. So I think it's very understandable. And all he wants is just for somebody to love him. And in the Gaston Leroux book, he says, I made a mask that's totally realistic, that no one will look at me twice, because the mask is so realistic, and I want to go for walks in the park with my wife and just be a normal person. That's all he wants, just to be a normal married man. And if only Christine could love him. I mean, that's why at the end of the Angela Ripper musical, he lets her go, because spoiler alert, she kisses him, and that he lets Raoul and Christine go before the mob comes and tries to kill them all, tries to kill Erik. And the sequel, Love Never Dies, is so stupid, it's terrible. I saw it at TPAC in Nashville, and it's just terrible. Thankfully, my mom paid for the tickets. I didn't pay for them. But I think that when Christine leaves Erik, that in the musical, that he should die. He should not live anymore, because I don't think he would be able to live without her and go on. I don't think he'd be able to go on living. I think he would just starve himself and die of dehydration and thirst and just die. Because I can't imagine Erik wanting to live without Christine. So when I was a kid, I used to, like, at the end, the ending scene where people are coming down the mob is coming down the portcullis and all this other stuff, I would pretend that Erik was getting knifed to death, and that the ending note is when he dies. That he's just waiting there to die. I think that's how the musical should have ended. I think it should have ended with Erik getting stabbed to death and just dying. I've always wanted to write a play about Erik's life, my own version of it, just like a monologue play, and I have somebody who is willing to play the role. My friend Scott, he does accents very well. He does an English accent. He's Scottish, but he does an English accent very well. and he's the right height, he's the right body structure. He looks like what I would think the Phantom would look like. And I wouldn't want him to like wear a mask. I'd want him to wear a tuxedo, and I wanted to have like a deformed face and take his mask off, because I think that wearing a mask is kind of hokey. But I've always wanted to write a play about Erik's life and have Scott play Erik. But maybe base it on the book. Maybe base it on the Susan K. book. If you're into Phantom, if you're to the Phantom of the Opera and you're into Erik, and you've never read Susan K's Phantom, it's just called Phantom. You need to read it. It's exceptionally good. It's very well written. It's like 400, 500 pages, well, maybe 300 pages. It's devouring. And it's set in different chapters, and every chapter is from the viewpoint of a different person. The first chapter is set at the viewpoint of Madeline, his mother. The second one is Erik. The third one is Giovanni, who is his mentor in Italy when he escapes from the freak show. And spoiler alert, Erik winds up showing his daughter, Giovanni's daughter, his face, because his daughter is so enamored with Erik. And he finally shows her his face, and she falls off the parapet and falls to her death. And then there's the Persian, who is his only friend, who saves his life in Persia. And then it's back to Erik, and then it's Erik and Christine, and then it's Raoul. So it's all set. I especially love the part that's when Erik is in the Paris Opera House, and when he meets Christine, it's very beautiful and sexy, and sensual. At one scene, Erik is all dressed up, and he goes up to really close to Christine, and she thinks he's gonna kiss him, and then he doesn't. There's a lot of sexual tension in this book, which I love. I love the build-up of sexual tension. The act of sex it's fun, but I like the build-up. I can't think of the word, but anyway, that's my take. That's about my experience with Phantom. I hope you enjoyed this, and stay tuned next time for Investigating Theater.